Hey, it's Glen Hopkins here, and in this video, we're going to review a standard contract of purchase and sale. So what you see before you is the contract of purchase and sale between the seller, Bugs Bunny, and the buyer, Daffy Duck. Now, this document is something that is completed by the buyer's agent, okay? In this case, being me, because it's showing being prepared by Glen Hopkins on behalf of Daffy Duck, the buyer, okay? So Daffy Duck is going to make an offer using this contract of purchase and sale. And the offer that he's making the home on, it shows as a subject property as 123 Banana Street. As we go through here, I'm just going to go over the highlights of the contract of purchase and sale. I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of absolutely everything, but just to give you a quick overview of some of the key points. So number one is the purchase price. Right here showing 1.2 million. So Daffy is offering $1.2 million for Bugs Bunny's home with a deposit of $60,000. Now, the deposit of $60,000, typically the deposit amount is approximately 5% of the purchase price, okay? And that deposit, it is payable within 1 business day upon the removal of all subjects by way of a bank draft, okay? So the buyer, Daffy Duck, is gonna have to get a bank draft for $60,000 and he's gonna make it out in trust to Coldwell Banker Marquis Realty. Now, the brokerage that I'm currently working with is Coldwell Banker Marquis Realty. And so Daffy Duck is gonna write the check to them in trust, and Coldwell Banker in this case is gonna hold it in their trust account until the deal is firm and completes. And at the time of completion, they pass that money over through the lawyers, okay? So that's the deposit and the purchase price. And then we get into the terms and conditions. Now, there are many subjects and terms that you can put into a contract. Obviously, I can't go through them all right here because it's dependent on the property itself. But what I'd like to do is highlight some of the more common subjects and clauses. So the first one here, and I should back up and let you know that anytime you put a subject into a contract, you're given approximately 7 to 10 days to remove that subject, okay? So to take care of it, in other words. And the first one in this case is subject to financing. And what it's saying is Daffy Duck wants subject to financing. He wants an opportunity to confirm with his lender that they will indeed give him a mortgage in the amount needed to purchase this property. And he'll have 7 to 10 days to confirm that and remove that subject. That's what it means to remove a subject. Subject number 2 is an inspection. So Daffy wants to have the opportunity to have his home inspector come over, look at the house, inspect everything, and make sure it's okay. That cost is going to be at the cost of the buyer. Okay, this is a subject to his benefit, and so he has to pay for it. Subject number 3 is the property disclosure statement. So every time a seller lists a home for sale, they are required to complete a form called a property disclosure statement, and that statement basically in it the seller reviews the entire home and what it has or does not have, and any issues that it may or may not have that they're aware of. Okay, and we'll go through that in another video. But this gives the buyer the opportunity to review the property disclosure statement, and again, they have the 7 to 10 days to do that. Title search is the next one. Again, every home has a title through the land titles office. As a seller's agent, the seller's agent will provide that to the buyer's agent to give to the buyer to review. And what they're looking for here is to see if there's any liens on the property or any covenants that are going to affect the property itself. Okay, so once we review that, we can remove that subject as well. Number 5 is insurance. Oftentimes, and this is more for condos and townhouses, but what we want to know from the buyer side is, can we get insurance for this property? And if so, how much is it going to cost, and what are the deductibles going to be? And in the case of strata type of insurance, we also want to know what the strata insurance policy looks like, what the deductibles are, and how expensive that is as well. And just a quick side note, this document that we're looking at right now is for the purchase or the offer of a detached home. In the situation where you're looking to purchase a stratified home, a condo or a townhouse, then we, as another subject, we would be looking to review the strata documents going back 2 years. So that can be a lot of paperwork because it goes back for 2 years. So, it can be 300 to 500 pages sometimes of information to review. But I'll help you review that when we get to that point. Okay, so that's insurance. Let's see what else we have here. So those are the key subjects that we're removing or looking to remove on this contract. Now we're going to get into some of the conditions of the contract. And again, there can be as few or as many conditions as you can think of. But I've just shared here with you some of the more common ones. Number one is keys. Upon possession, the seller will provide the buyer with 2 sets of keys, fobs, mailbox keys, and so on. Illegal activities. This states that the seller represents and warrants that there has been no illegal activities that have taken place in the home, namely grow ops or anything of that nature. The footage and lot size. This states that the buyer has been advised that any further information or exact measurements or square footage of the lot, if that's a concern to them, they should measure it themselves or have it professionally done on their own. They cannot rely on the measurements given by the seller, because oftentimes when you're looking at floor plans and what have you, those measurements are for marketing purposes only. Okay, so they can always be on or off by a couple of inches. So from the buyer's standpoint, if it's something important to them, they should definitely have it professionally measured on their side. Appliances and systems. Okay, so what happens here is the seller is basically warranting that all appliances and systems will be in the same working condition as of the time that the buyer actually viewed them when they viewed the house that first time. So between the time they viewed the house and the time they take completion of the house or possession of the house, those appliances and systems need to be in the same working condition. And this is a clause here that states that the seller will warrant that will in fact be the case. Latent defects. The seller warrants that there will be no stains or damage to any of the flooring walls or underneath any of the furniture, area rugs, or unvisible areas by the buyer. So what does that mean? Well, a latent defect is a defect that the buyer can't actually see with their naked eye. So if there was a floor stain, say a bleach stain on the floor underneath the carpet that they didn't see when they viewed the home, then the seller would be liable for getting that repaired. If there's a big hole in the wall behind a photo or something, same situation. Okay. Property transfer tax. This breaks down what property taxes are payable by the buyer at the time of completion. And we're not going to go through all that right now, but we can do that in another video. Access to the property. So in this clause, we're stating that the seller will agree to allow the buyer access to the property up to 2 times with 48 hours of notice. Okay, so when you're the buyer, oftentimes you want to go back to the home to maybe bring in a contractor to do a review of what needs to be done and get an estimate of what needs to be done on the home, or maybe you want to come in and do some measurements. There's a number of potential reasons why you might want to come in. So we put access to the property as a clause. Bank appraisals. So with the bank appraisal, we want to ensure that the seller is going to agree to and allow an appraiser for the buyer into the home. Okay, so this is something that the lending institution is going to want to do. The lender is going to want to send their appraiser to the home to ensure that the home is worth what the buyer is about to pay for it and that they can actually put a mortgage on it. Okay. Electronic signatures. This clause simply states that both the buyer and the seller are in agreement with using electronic signatures. Cleaning, garbage, and debris. So upon the possession of the home, this clause states that the home will be clean and free of any type of debris. That's the garage and the home itself. Obviously, the buyer, Daffy, he doesn't want to move into Bugsy's mess. So Bugsy has the responsibility of cleaning out the house and making it look great and having it professionally cleaned in this case. Okay, so those are all of the clauses and statements. Now we get down into the dates. And I've covered this in another video in detail, but these are 3 important dates: completion date, the possession date, and the adjustment date. So the sale will be completed on January the 21st. The completion date, really quick, is the date that the money transfers hands from the buyer to the seller. The possession date, which is typically 2 days after completion, that's the date that Daffy gets to move into the new house. So in other words, the seller has to have the home cleared out and cleaned, and they have to be out of there on possession date at a given time. In this case, it's saying they have to be out by 8 a.m. on January the 23rd, because that's when Daffy's moving in. And in this case, it's saying it must be vacant possession. So if there was a tenant in the home, this clause here is stating that there will be no tenant in the home. The home will be completely vacant. If you do have a tenant in the home, and the part of the agreement is that the tenant is going to stay there, then it would not say vacant possession. Okay. Number 6 here is adjustments. Adjustment date is the same as the possession date. And again, that's the day that the lawyers are going to look at to adjust and do any type of retroactive payments backwards or forwards in regards to the property tax. Okay, so you don't need to worry about that. The lawyers take care of that for you. Okay, here's one here, included items. These are the items that will be included with the purchase and sale of this house. So in this case, we're saying with the purchase of the house, we will be getting the washer, dryer, fridge, stove, microwave, dishwasher, all lighting fixtures, all drapes and window coverings, the central vacuum system and its related accessories. So, you know, the vacuuming tools, 2 sets of all keys, 2 garage door openers, and the mailbox keys. Now, we can add anything else in here that we might like. So when Daffy's walking through Bugsy's house and he sees that Bugsy has this amazing chandelier in the dining room that he wants to keep, he can write it in here as an inclusion. Okay. Now, it becomes an issue for Daffy, or pardon me, for Bugsy. If Bugsy decides he doesn't want to include it, he's going to scratch it out, and you know that's when we go back and forth with negotiations. But in any case, anything you want as the buyer, you're going to put here as an included item. As far as excluded items, this is something that the seller would enter in. So anything that the seller wants to exclude from the sale of the property, in this case, that dining room chandelier, which everybody loves so much, well, Bugsy loves it too. So he's going to want to keep it. So he's putting it in here as an exclusion. All right. The date viewed is the date that the buyer, Daffy Duck, viewed the home for the first time. And we'll scroll through the rest of these because it'll take too long to go through them all. And I just want to go over the highlights with you. Here it's showing agency disclosure. It's saying Porky Pig is the designated agent for, who is it, Bugs Bunny? Getting confused here with my characters. And then Glen Hopkins, myself, I'm the designated agent for Daffy Duck. Daffy's initial there. And then lastly, we have the offer and how long the offer is open till. So Daffy has made this offer, and he said this offer or counter offer will be open for acceptance until 5 p.m. on November the 10th. So typically when a buyer puts in an offer, they give the seller typically 24 hours to respond. Sometimes it's shorter, sometimes it's longer, but 24 hours is very common. And that's it. Those are the highlights of a contract of purchase and sale.